Okay, hello everybody. This is Nadira Jamal, the Belly Dance Geek, and I am the creator of Taktaba, the video podcast on dance composition for belly dancers, and the producer of the Improvisation Toolkit DVD series. So thanks for joining me today for my free teleseminar, You Can Make a Video. In this call, I'm going to tell you about the 3 myths and mistakes that keep dancers from making the leap to video. For each myth, I'm going to give you some homework to help you overcome those myths and however they're acting in your own dance life. So if you have a pencil and paper, that would be handy. If not, you can just think about it for later. And I'm also going to tell you about how you can get training and support to release your first video. At the end of the call, we are going to have some time for questions and answers. So if you're listening on the webcast, you can type those in at any time at the box on the left. I won't be monitoring them during the call, but we'll have them available to answer at the end. And if you're on phone or Skype, just write down your questions as you think of them so that you can ask at the end. So, before we get into the myths and mistakes, I'd like to talk about why it's so important to make a video. There are a lot of reasons. One that's really obvious is income, right? You can sell your DVDs and make money. They can support you in your business and help you make a living from this dance. But beyond that, there are 2 really important things that I don't think a lot of dancers think about. One is that a video lets you serve more people. When you only teach live classes, you're limited to the people who can actually show up in class. Those are the only people that you can help. But a video lets you step beyond the classroom. So people who aren't local can learn from you. You can use a video to help your students learn when they're outside of class. And it's also a way to help people who have never heard of you. I've actually heard of dancers for the first time when I stumbled upon their videos on Amazon because I was looking for what they had to teach. So it gives you a way to reach people and help people even if they don't know who you are. Which takes me to my second point, which is that having a video establishes you as an expert. It's a great way to get your name out there. And in a lot of ways, a dancer's video is her calling card in the belly dance community. It's something that workshop sponsors look for as a way to establish your credibility because they know that a lot of workshop attendees will look you up before they sign up for your workshop, and a lot of them are going to go to Amazon and read the reviews on your video. And if they see that you're there and that you have a good reputation, they're more likely to sign up for your workshop. But it's not just your reputation in the eyes of other dancers that can also establish your credibility in the eyes of potential students. When students are looking for a class and they see 2 options, very often they're going to pick the one who has the video because she looks to be of higher stature. So there's really a lot going for getting a video. There's lots of good reasons to do that. But at the same time, a lot of dancers really wait a lot longer than they need to before they do that. So there are 3 big reasons why dancers don't make the leap to video. The first mistake is what I call the who am I to do that mistake, right? So you know you want to make a video. You might even have a good idea for one, but you keep thinking, oh, who am I to do that, right? And this was my big thing. When I first got the idea for my Improvisation Toolkit series, I was a newer professional. I was just straddling. I just stopped doing student nights at the better venues. I'd been performing professionally for a while, but I was, kind of in that threshold space when I started my video podcast. But by the time I was ready to make my DVD, I really had been truly in the professional world for a couple of years. But I still kind of felt like the new girl in town or the lowest dancer on the ladder. And I had done all the right things. I had my teacher's blessing. I'd done a teaching apprenticeship. I had made my video podcast. And I knew I had a great idea, but I was so terrified of putting myself out there. I had this idea that, if I got my video and I put it out there and I really established myself as a real professional, that somebody would come by with a rolled-up newspaper and whack me on the nose and say, bad dancer, no biscuit. You can't make a video until you're a big name, right? And I knew that wasn't likely to happen, but that fear was just so ingrained because I, really didn't want to be that one-year wonder. I had the qualifications, I had the background, but I was so afraid of stepping on somebody's toes. Luckily, I had somebody to give me a nice kick in the bum. I was working with Julie Eason of the Belly Dance Business Academy at the time, and I was telling her about this crazy idea that I had. And I said, but who am I to make a video? And what she said to me is, who are you not to? Because here's the thing, making a video is not actually about you. If there's somebody out there who needs what you have to offer and you withhold that because you're afraid of what the consequences might be, you're doing a disservice to that person. You're letting somebody go hungry when you could help them. Now, that's not a guilt trip. You're not obligated to make any videos that you don't feel like making, but it is permission, right? If you see a need, you know you can fill it and you'd like to, you don't have to wait for somebody's permission. You've got it already, because it is about serving people, not about putting yourself out there. Or if you want to put it another way, there's this great quote by Martha Graham. She said, "There's a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there's only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It's not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable, nor how it compares to other expressions. It's your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You don't even have to believe in yourself or your work." Now, Martha was talking about dancing itself, but I believe that that's just as true for teaching. You have something unique to offer, and if you don't offer it, the world will never have it. And I think this is one thing that most dancers forget, is that making an instructional DVD really is about teaching. It's not, a showcase venue for world-class dancers to show us that they really are that good. It really is about sharing knowledge and helping the other dancers improve. So if you're qualified to teach beginners, you're qualified to make a video. And I'm going to say this again because I really wish somebody had said it to me. If you're qualified to teach beginners, you're qualified to make a video. Okay, now professional standards are important, and if you're not qualified to teach beginners, now isn't the time to make your video yet. You've got some time. But really, I think that we get so tied up in this idea that only the biggest name dancers are allowed to make their videos, that you should have been on the workshop circuit internationally for 10 years before you put out your video. And the thing is, that's not how it works. Most of the big names that we know, we discovered through their videos. Really, the only two ways that dancers become really famous, unless they happen to be, performing in Cairo, is to either make a video or win one of the higher level competitions. So we've got this chicken and egg thing going on. We think it's, I can't, make a video until I'm a big name, but it's the big names who became famous because they had their videos. So hopefully that will help shift that a little bit. So I'd like to give you a little bit of homework. You can do this now if you're ready to think about it, or you can save it for later. And that's that I'd like you to think about what you're afraid of, right? If you're thinking and asking, who am I to make a video, I want you to think about what consequences are you afraid of? What's your squeaky newspaper situation? What are you afraid is going to happen? And then once you've got a really clear picture of that in your mind, ask yourself if that's actually likely. That's what made the shift for me, is I knew somebody could chastise me for making a video earlier in my career, but it wasn't likely to happen. And then the final question is, even if it does, what's the worst that could happen, right? The very worst that could happen in my case is that somebody I admire could tell me that they thought I was doing this too early, right? And I could say to someone else, well, I had something to share. I'm proud of what I made. And also, somebody else that I admire disagrees with you, right? And so sometimes examining these fears and taking them down a realistic path, not the path you're most afraid of, but a realistic path, can help diffuse some of those concerns. So just take a minute to think about that. What are you afraid of? Is it likely? And what's the worst that could really happen? Okay, if you need some more time to think about that, just jot down what thoughts you have so far. You can always listen to the recording of the call when you're done if you don't remember what you were thinking. I'd like to move on to myth number 2, and that's I don't have anything to add, right? And this is one of the things that keeps dancers, even when they're very established, very seasoned teachers, from making videos. They think they don't have anything to contribute to the video market. And the thing is, your topic doesn't have to be unique. If there are already videos out there on the thing that you're making, that's a really good sign. That means that there's a market for it because there's a need for it, right? There are 20 different shimmy videos out there because people really need help with shimmies. right? And the thing is that when people really, truly want help with something, they go out and they buy more than one video on the same topic, right? I have lots of shimmy videos. Even recently, I've got 3 in rotation that I use on a regular basis. So it's not like, any competition is a terrible thing. It's the best thing. It means that you're more likely to be serving a real need. But you do want to have some unique angle on your topic. So I want to talk about the 4 things that you have to offer. The first is your perspective, right? There may be lots of other videos on your topic, but the way that you explain it is going to be unique, and that may help somebody learn when they had difficulty learning it explained in a different way. If you, like me, took classes with multiple teachers when you were learning, then you probably had this experience, right? When I was a new dancer, I didn't realize that the hip shimmy and the knee shimmy were different things until I'd been dancing for 2.5 years. And it wasn't until I went into a class with a new teacher and she made us do the knee shimmy on the floor that I realized that it wasn't just dancers using 2 different names for the same shimmy, right? And so just explaining something from a different perspective can be tremendously valuable. The other thing that's valuable about your perspective is that you may emphasize different things than the other video instructors have. If we come back to the shimmy video example, there are videos on mastering one shimmy, learning a repertoire of different shimmies, on shimmy layering, on shimmy drills, and so on, right? And so the market is actually quite large. There are thousands and thousands of dancers in the U.S. alone, and each one of them has something different that they need. So you can meet a need and provide a valuable video just by taking a different tack and a different perspective on the same topic. The second thing that you have to offer is your personality. People don't learn as well from people that they don't like. I'm sure you've probably had this experience in school before, right? The teacher that really connected with you and made you feel comfortable was probably the one who helped you learn the best. And, again, we find this in local classes as well. If a student doesn't like you, they may leave even if they really like belly dance, right? And so that's something that you have to offer on video. So whether they like you affects how they'll use the video, whether they'll use it. So even if they've already bought another video on the same topic, if the instructor rubbed them the wrong way, they may want yours too. And there's a great quote here that I've got from a marketing expert named Penelope Trunk. The information is a commodity, and the personality is the differentiator. I'm going to read that again. The information is a commodity, and the personality is the differentiator, right? Because really, there's nothing new under the sun, right? We have a movement vocabulary that's shared among us. There's all this information about how the dance works that some of us think about and some of us don't. But we're not really inventing anything new about the dance other than a specific choreography, right? We're teaching different ways to use this common shared stuff. And so, the information is easy to get, right? Dancers can Google stuff and see it. They can watch videos on YouTube. But the personality, how you present it, how you introduce it, how you teach it, is what's going to make you different from other video instructors. Now, the third thing you have to offer is your material, right? And even if you don't think your material is unique, it really is, because what's easy for you isn't easy for everyone. And I have to be reminded of this all the time. So whatever you find easy, somebody else may really benefit from having it explained and broken down and introduced in just the right way. So what's easy for you is a great topic to add. You may also want to look at what skills you have that were really hard won, right? What drove you crazy when you were learning, and how did you overcome that? For example, when I first created my video podcast, I did that specifically because I wanted more information on dance composition. There were a couple of videos out there, but they didn't cover what I wanted, so I really had to dig deep. I took a choreography class for PE credit at MIT. I read all these choreography books written by ballerinas and modern dancers and things like that, and I really dug deep to find this information, and I really know it now. So that was a really hard-won skill. And so whatever you've worked really hard to get is something that you're especially qualified to teach. Even if you think other people are using it better than you are or more frequently than you are, you have a unique way of approaching that material and a unique perspective into it that is just wonderful. So don't think that just because you didn't master something immediately that it's not valuable. That makes it more valuable. And also, you don't have to be the world expert on what you teach. If you're covering something that you think everybody knows, but you have to teach it to your students in class, why not put it on video? If your students need to learn it in class from you, other people are going to need to learn it. And this is something that's really important to remember, especially if you're making videos for beginner and intermediate students rather than for other higher level dancers. And this is that not every teacher teaches everything. Okay? When I was first taking dance classes, my teacher didn't teach zills. It was kind of a perpetual beginner class. She didn't want to bother. She had sensitive ears. And so when I wanted to learn zills, I had to go out and find a video. Now, there were dozens of other teachers in town who did teach zills. I'm in Boston. We're lucky we have lots of teachers. But because I didn't know where to go, my first thought was to look to a video. So even if you have material that you think, oh, everybody knows that, look at what your students need from you, because chances are other people's students need that as well, and you can fill that gap. I'm going to take a sip of water here. The fourth thing that you have to offer is to serve a different audience. Okay, there are all kinds of different people out there who are interested in belly dance. Our students are not all the same. Our video audience members are not all the same. You have older people, younger people, people who are interested in fitness, people who are interested in spirituality or personal expression. There are all kinds of different audiences. And so even if there are already videos that cover what you would like to teach, you can make it completely unique just by tailoring it to a different audience. Okay? Because the person who wants to dance to, connect with the divine isn't going to enjoy the video for the people who want a good workout, right? Those are very different intentions and very different feelings and ways of approaching the material. So you have a lot of opportunity to serve. So a couple examples that I've got here, and feel free to steal these. You can use them all you want. One is that there are really not that many stage-worthy beginner choreography videos, right? There are a ton of choreography videos out there, and there are a lot of beginner videos that have a, well, let's put it all together, kind of basic, boring choreography. But there really aren't that many videos that teach a choreography that you can memorize and do at a Hoffley, right? And I remember when Jolina's instructional series came out maybe 6 years ago. As soon as that came out, in the next couple of months, over and over again, at pretty much every Hoffley, I saw some, beginner or intermediate student performing those choreographies because they were there and they were ready and they were attractive, and they gave these students entree into the Hoffley when they didn't feel prepared to put together their own choreography or to improvise. So that's one need that you could meet. The other thing that I've noticed is that there isn't a single video out there, at least not that I've seen, for pregnant dancers with previous dance experience, right? Lots of prenatal belly dance videos. I can think of maybe 5 or 6, right? But they're all geared towards pregnant women who would like to do something physical and, hey, here's belly dance, right? But if you're already a belly dancer and you get pregnant and you want something that's safe for your condition but doesn't spend 7 million years breaking down the hip circle, there isn't very much out there for you. Right? So just taking an idea that already exists and thinking, who else could be served if I approach this differently is a fantastic way to make a contribution. Right? Now, when it comes to audience, there's also something really important that I think most dancers don't think of when they think of videos. Video isn't just for the national market. Right? When we think about making a video, usually we're thinking about producing something for people who are dancers in other cities, students in other towns, etc. But you don't have to market your video nationally. There's a tremendous local market for your work as well. The first is your students. My students ask me for practice videos all the time. And the thing is, they don't ask me to recommend a video. They ask me if I have a video. They want mine, right? And I don't have it yet. I really need to get cracking on that, but I have too many projects going on. So your students are a tremendous market. They know you, they like you, and they need resources to help them practice or help them expand on what they've learned. The other local market that you should be aware of is brides and shower guests. If you do party lessons like I do, chances are those people would love to have a video version of the choreography you just taught them, right? I have a 45-minute lesson. I teach them a really simple drum solo. They have a great time, and I'll bet they would love to take home a DVD of the choreography that I taught them, both so that they can do it again and keep using what they've learned, but also because it's a great memento of what they've just experienced together, right? And so, you don't need to target everything that you do for this national, international belly dance student market. Just think about who you're already serving with your dance. Very often, by serving them, you can create a wonderful market for yourself. So that was myth number 2. I don't have anything to add, so I'm going to give you a little homework for that one. So the 4 things that you have to offer are your perspective, your personality, your material, and the audience you can serve. So take a minute and think about how those 4 things could work for you. What's your unique perspective? Who would be pleased by your personality? What material do you have, either what's easy for you or what was hard won? And what audiences could you tailor your work to serve? Just take a couple minutes to think about that. Okay, we're going to move on, but if you haven't finished thinking about that, just jot down what you've thought of so far, and you can come back to it later. Again, this call is going to be recorded, and you will get the recording, so you can always listen to it again if you need your memory refreshed. The third myth that keeps dancers from making their first videos is the idea, oh God, I can't handle this, right? I'm sure you felt that. I certainly did. And I think that this usually boils down to 2 concerns. One is the cost, and the other is this feeling of overwhelm, right? This is this huge, unmanageable project. Now, these are both legitimate concerns. Cost is a big deal, right? Back in the day, your only option to make a real professional quality video was to pay a production company to make it for you. And that would cost between $5,000 and $15,000, right? Now, that is a big investment. It ties up your money, and it puts a lot more pressure on you. So even if you do have the money to invest, it puts you in a situation where you can't learn, you can't make mistakes, you can't experiment because your video has to be perfect, because if it's not, it won't sell. And if it won't sell, then you'll never make this money back, and then you'll have lost a good year's worth of savings, right? And that's a terrible position to be in. It also means that it can take a really long time before you make your money back, which even if you have money to invest isn't a great option. Now, 10 years ago, you could pay a production company, or the other option was that you could make a no-frills video on your own. So that was the kind of thing where you put up your camcorder, you pressed record, you ran around to the other side of the camera and talked, right? And a lot of the early belly dance videos were made that way. But the thing is that they look kind of amateurish, right? They're homemade and they look like it. And a lot of very valuable information was shared that way, but we're living in the age of YouTube, right? So dancers are used to going online and seeing videos with bad production values. So it's not that they're judging them as bad, right? But they're used to seeing them all the time, but they're not used to paying for them, right? They associate amateur production values with things that they should be getting for free. And so our audiences really do expect good, strong, professional production values in their videos. And so it seems like the only option that you've got is this big investment, big project, but that's actually not the case anymore. Over the last 10 years or so, there have been very big developments in the production process, in technology, and in the video market. And what that means is that you can actually make your video yourself and still get professional quality results. This is what I did when I made the Improvisation Toolkit series, and I made those DVDs for about $100 each. Now, this is not typical. I was very resourceful, and I was also pretty lucky. I had access to a couple of resources that not everybody will have. But if you use the same method that I did, you can actually expect to make your DVD for a couple $100 instead of several thousand. Now, if that still sounds like a lot, I get it. Nobody wants to throw out a couple $100. But if you spend $400 making your video, and you sell it for $20, that means that you'd only need to sell 20 copies of your DVD before you get your money back, right? And that's not that many. Chances are you've got 20 students. And with my first volume of the Improv Toolkit, I sold 50 copies just in pre-orders. So 50 copies had sold before I even had it in my hand. So these are not big numbers. The second piece of I can't handle this is overwhelm. And this is also legitimate. Making a video is a lot of work. There's no way around that. There are just a lot of pieces that go into it, and it takes a lot of elbow grease. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming. I think that the reason that dancers get overwhelmed by video production is, one, it's unfamiliar, right? They don't know how to do it yet. And also because they don't have a systematic way to approach the process, right? It's just this huge laundry list of things that need to get done, and if your list isn't complete, if you don't know exactly everything that needs to be done, then you might get surprised by extra tasks, and it just keeps piling up, and you have more and more work to do, and blah, right? But it really doesn't need to be that way. And so before we move on to the Q&A, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my next program, which is specifically about making video production something that you can handle. But before we get on to that, let me give you a little bit of homework. So myth number 3 was, I can't handle this. It's going to cost too much, or I'm just not going to be able to handle the process. So take a second and just think about which piece of that is your worst concern, right? Are you afraid of investing the money? Are you afraid of the amount of time it's going to take? Are you going to be afraid of all the things you have to learn, or of just organizing the process? So just take a second and think about that. Okay. And again, if you need more time, you can always work on this again later, so make some notes about what you've come up with so far. Okay. And so again, the two pieces of I can't handle this are it's going to cost too much, or I can't handle the process, right? And those are legitimate concerns, but they are solvable concerns. I went through this process by myself twice and made 2 successful professional quality videos. And I did that by being resourceful, by digging and learning through all the tutorials and figuring everything out by myself. And that was a ton of work. But I don't think that you need to go through all of that just to make your video, and I don't think that those things should be barriers for you. I think that the value of making your own video is so strong and can make such a difference in your dance career that I want to make this as easy as possible for you. So I've created a new course that I'm offering this coming year, which is a step-by-step roadmap to the video production process. So my 2 goals were to overcome those 2 issues. The first thing that I'm going to do is to teach you how to make a video at low cost. So again, it may not be $100 like mine was, but it'll be a couple $100 instead of a couple thousand. And the other is to give you a step-by-step roadmap through the video production process so that you don't have to figure out any of this on your own. I can't do the work for you, but I can make it straightforward and easy and obvious. So the program is called Make Your First Belly Dance Video, and this is an online course. It's going to start on January 5th of 2013, and it's going to go through August. Now that's a long time, yeah, that's 8 months, and there's a reason for that. The video production process is a lot of work, and it can be done significantly faster than that. In fact, I actually made my first video in 8 weeks. I had announced a much too ambitious deadline, And I pulled a lot of all-nighters, and I don't want that for you. So we're going to take our time, and we're going to step through the entire video production process from beginning to end. So you don't even need your idea before you start. If you have one, that's great, but if not, we're going to talk about different ways to get ideas, and specifically ideas that people will need and want to buy. And by the end of the program, you're going to have your DVD in your hand and also up for sale on Amazon. So every month from January to August, we're going to cover just one step in that process. In the first month, we're going to give you an overview of the process so you can wrap your brain around it and figure out what you're getting yourself into. And I'm also going to tell you what you need in order to get professional results, as well as the most affordable ways to get it. So this is where I'm going to introduce how I made my videos, and also give you alternatives if the resources that I used aren't available to you. Next, we're going to get into idea development, which is where you're going to find ideas that will sell, right? Ideas that will meet the needs of your audience and make them happy to spend money getting help with it. Then I'm also going to teach you how to turn those ideas into an effective script. And I'm actually calling this module How to Teach When You're Not There, because teaching on video is very different from teaching in a classroom because you don't have the opportunity to give ongoing feedback. Then I'm going to teach you how to get professional quality footage, so things like how to prepare for your shoot and work with a crew, or how to work without one. If you're going to film entirely on your own, I'll give you the information that you need to do that. Then I'll teach you how to edit your video, so how to take all that raw footage and make it into a professional sequence. I'll teach you how to author your DVD and how to get it manufactured. And this will also include standard manufacturing, as well as options that won't tie up all your money in inventory. One of the possible costs of video production is having to buy 1,000 copies of your DVD, and that is no longer needed. In fact, with some of the market innovations that we've had in the last 10 years, you never even have to touch your DVD. The manufacturer can make it and ship it off directly to the buyer. So that's a really handy thing to know. And then in the last month, we're going to talk about how to market your video. Now, marketing is not an afterthought. And in fact, usually I recommend that you start your marketing very early in the production process. But since this is your first video project and you're going to have so much going on and so much to do, we're going to save it for last this time just to make sure you don't get overwhelmed. So that's what's going in the program, but I want to reiterate that this really is step-by-step. So every month you're going to get a video training, which will teach you the information and the skills that you're going to be using that month, including video tutorials for things like video editing and other technical processes. And these are also going to be available on audio and as PDF transcripts. So if you hate watching video, you will have other options. And every month you're also going to get worksheets and checklists. And these are going to take you through the entire video production process step by step. And it really is the entire process. There is nothing else you will need to do. When you've completed those worksheets and checked off every item on those checklists, you will have your DVD in your hand. So this is a very hold your hand, take you through the process kind of thing. And now the course is complete in itself, so you can take it and work on your own. But when it comes to a big, scary project like making your first video, it really helps to have some support. So in addition to the course materials, I'm offering an interactive version as a premium option. So in addition to the video training and the worksheets, I'm also going to have a private forum for the course. So this is a safe, confidential space where you can meet the other students, ask questions, both of them and of me, and get some support and some accountability. And you can do the course on your own if you prefer. Everything that you need is going to be in there, but having a community at your back can really help you from giving up when you get frustrated or scared. And that's so important on something as big and important to you as your first video, because all of these things that we've just talked about are going to rear their ugly heads, right? You're going to film your footage, you're going to be editing it, and one day you're going to be looking at it saying, wow, this is great, and the next day you're going to wake up and saying, what was I thinking? Who am I to do this, right? And so that support in that community can really help you stay on track and get this done and get it out there. Okay. So if you're interested in Make Your First Belly Dance video, you can register at taktaba.com/video, and I'll spell that for you. It's TAKTAB as in boy, A.com/video. And I'll also send out that link when I send out the recording. And just for the people who are on this call or listening to the recording, I'm giving a free upgrade to the premium option. So instead of just getting the materials, you can get that private forum with that support as long as you sign up by next Saturday, December 22nd. In order to get that upgrade, you will need to enter a discount code U, spelled Y-O-U, all in lowercase, and you can enter that in the shopping cart when you see the link that says add a discount code. Now, just one thing that's important to know is that that is in the shopping cart, not at checkout. And if you have any trouble checking out or anything like that, just drop me an email, nadira@nadirajamal.com, and we'll take care of it. Again, this is just for those of you who are on the call or listening to the recording. So you can share the link to the program, which was taktaba.com/video, but please don't share the coupon code. That's just for you. Okay. I'm going to take a sip of water here. All right. So now I'm going to open up the line to questions. We've covered a lot so far, right? We've got why you want to make a video, income, the opportunity to serve more people, establishing yourself as an expert and getting your name out there. We had the first mistake, which is who am I to make a video, and really who are you not to? Our second mistake was I don't have anything to add, and we covered 4 things that you have to offer: your perspective, your personality, your material, and the audience you serve. And our third mistake is that you can't handle it. Either it's going to cost too much, which is not true if you're willing to be resourceful and do some of the work yourself, and that it's going to be overwhelming, which is also perfectly true unless you are willing to learn what you need to do and take an organized approach to the process. So if you have any questions, now's a great time to ask. If you're on the webcast, you can type those in at the box at left. And if you are on the phone or Skype, you can press *2 to raise your hand. And if you are on Skype, just so you know that *2 needs to be on the Skype dial pad, not on your keyboard. Okay, so let's see what we've got in the way of questions. Okay, we've got one on the call. Teresa in Rochester is asking how much Make Your First Video is. Okay, so this is a month-to-month process. So the premium version is $27 a month, which for the record is less than 1 copy of my video. And the way it works is that you can drop out at any time if you sign up for the month-to-month one, or you can go for the whole thing. I hope you will. But also, if there are specific months that you're not interested in, you can just skip those. We can freeze your account during that month. So if you're already a whiz at video editing and you don't want to take the editing month, you can just leave that out. That's no problem. I am also offering a special, so if you pay for the entire program up front, then you get the 7th module for free. So the marketing module will be free. So the premium version on that is $162. But again, if you do register by the 22nd and remember to use the coupon code, then you get that for the basic price. So that would be $24 a month or $144 for the full program. Good question. Any others? Okay, I am going to unmute Barbara in Moncton. Hi, Barbara. Oh, I'm sorry, I unmuted the wrong person. I accidentally I put her on hold instead of unmuting her. Hi, Barbara. Sorry about that. What's your question?
I'm just wondering, Nadira, if you know if there would be major differences, because I'm in Canada and not in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering when it comes to the whole resources production, if you know that, if there would be differences, if I would be able to get some support in figuring that out, maybe.
Absolutely. So one of the resources that I've used, which we'll talk about more in the program, is a community-based resource which may or may not be available in Canada. But if it isn't, I do also have backup suggestions for everything.
Okay.
So if particular music sites aren't available to you, then we can do that. And also one of the advantages of the forum is that if there's anything that I've mentioned in the program that isn't working for you for some reason, you also have the ability to ask during the program. So you can always bring that up.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Okay, I also see a question from Treasure. And Treasure, go ahead.
I've had a couple of questions. One of them is, will any of this information be applicable for perhaps producing a live performance video rather than an instructional video?
Okay, live performance. That's a good question. This really is geared toward the instructional video piece of it. So a lot of the modules would not apply directly to performance productions. So things like scripting and idea development obviously aren't going to do much for a performance video. Things like shooting and editing and making DVDs would apply. The only thing that I will tell you is that the price estimates that I've mentioned so far are specifically for instructional videos, and shooting a performance video is quite a bit more expensive, simply because you have a lot more music to license. On an instructional video, you can license 1 or 2 songs and be fine, but for a performance video, you'd have to license each individual song or put yourself at risk of copyright violations. So I guess the program could certainly teach you things that would be helpful, but it's not necessarily going to be cheap just because of all of the licensing expenses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. And you said you had some more questions?
I think you may have answered it all. If I come up with anything else, I'll raise my hand again.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Treasure. I see some questions on the Q&A call, so let me take a look at those. Okay, somebody asked about music copyrights. We are going to talk about that. So in the What You Need and How to Get It module, which is the first one, we are going to talk about different ways of licensing music and different ways of getting it for different price points, which is very important and very helpful. And one of the important themes in that module is when to splurge and when to save. So we'll also talk about whether it's worth being cheap with your music or not. So I hope that answered your question. If not, go ahead and enter another one in the Q&A box. I also have a question from Cindy in Dallas. She asks, how much stress is it to collect taxes for your DVD? The way I handle that is when I'm selling them personally, so in person, I actually price the DVD so that the DVD plus taxes adds up to a useful number. So, it'll be $30 for the DVD plus tax, so the base price is a little bit lower. When it comes to online sales, that actually is handled by your merchant. So if it's Amazon selling it, Amazon takes care of it. If somebody is buying it directly from me online, I can calculate that in my shopping cart. And my payment processor, which used to be PayPal but is not anymore, will actually give me a report of how much sales tax I've collected. And I'm sure this varies from state to state, but in Massachusetts, I just have to go to the Department of Revenue's website once a year, run my reports from my merchants, and then give them a payment once a year. So it adds a little bit of extra effort, but it's not a huge amount of time or a huge amount of tracking required. Again, it could be different in different states, but for me it's pretty straightforward. So I hope I answered that, Cindy. If not, go ahead and ask another question in the box. Okay, I see a question from Amina Beres. Hi there.
Hi, Nadira. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Just fabulous. Quick question, I guess. I will have more, but I'm wondering what your experience has been with the 2 instructional videos that you made, as far as how did you determine how long the video was going to run? Did you start off with, I've got 7 hours of stuff here and condensed it into 45 minutes, or is that something that might be covered in some of this?
We'll get into that in more detail in scripting, but I can answer your question. So the short version is that so there are 2 things that are important to the length. One is that there are physical limits on how much high-quality video you can include on a DVD, and usually that's about 2 hours, right? It's possible to manufacture dual-layer discs that are longer, but it's expensive and it's difficult, and a lot of the automated manufacturing options that we're going to talk about are not available. So it's much, much simpler if each individual DVD that you make is 2 hours or less. Okay? The other piece of that is that people have expectations about how long a video should be, and even when it's completely unfair, people complain if a video is shorter than an hour. So even if they've learned something really valuable and it's really complete and well taught, they tend to feel a little bit antsy. So I recommend between 1 and 2 hours. I think the first video in my series is 70 minutes or 80. But again, that can adjust a little bit. If you do have information that's not going to fit in 1 to 2 hours, what I really recommend is chunking it down into individual skills. That's helpful because it will make it fit on a DVD, but it's also helpful because it encourages people to really master and focus on just one part. And so when they're finished with it, they've actually accomplished something and learned something instead of gotten this big overview. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Excellent. And did you have more questions?
There will be.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put you on mute again. If you think of anything else, go ahead and press star 2 to raise your hand. And I'm going to head over to the Q&A list here for the webcast folks. Let's see. Jennifer's asking, is there a way to get your video course now all together at one time from you? Because she plans on doing a video in January and it would help beforehand. And the answer is no, and that's because I'm going to be making it month to month as we do it. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing it as a course rather than a single downloadable product, is because I've been planning on doing this for over a year, and other projects kept getting priority. And so I wanted to have a community there of people who are waiting for me to make this, because when people are waiting for me, things get done. When people aren't waiting for me, it gets pushed to the end. So, my personal selfish reason for doing it as a course is to do it month to month. Every month I'm going to make a module. My reason for you is that there's a lot of benefit in the community piece. So the entire course will not be ready because the pieces will be made month by month, so you can't get the whole thing. But the first module, which is what you need and how to get it, is going to be available quite early in January. I've actually got that almost ready to go now. And so, things about how to get access to filming equipment and how to license music and kind of the overview piece of that is going to be available pretty early in January. So Jennifer, I hope I've answered your question. If not, go ahead and type in another one in the Q&A box. Another question here on the webcast is, the topics that come to my mind are so geeky, how to dress that up? Don't. Geeky is awesome. There are a lot of belly dance geeks out there. I'm one of them. The people on my mailing list who get my newsletter, who show up to teleseminars like this, are other geeks, right? And remember in myth number 2 when I talked about I don't have anything to add, and I said that one thing that you can add is the audience that you serve, right? The belly dance geeks are underserved. So talk to them. Make something for them. And when I say them, I mean us, because I'm one too, right? Don't try and make it general. Make it geeky, because the geeks are going to love you, and they're going to recommend your video to all their geek friends. I hope I've answered that. If not, go ahead and ask another question in the box. Let's see. Jennifer in Orlando is asking, what are some suggestions on how to go about getting music for your DVD? This is huge. Agreed. We're going to get into a lot of resources on that in the first module of the program, in what you need and how to get it. But the short version is that there are a couple of different options. One is that you can license the music directly from the music label, which is the most expensive option. And that's why I usually quote people $400 as their production cost, because licensing a song typically costs around $300. There are other ways out there. You can look at something called Creative Commons, which is a way that people have to legally share their music and give permission for people to use it. And then there are also all kinds of other ways that you can buy music at lower cost. So we're going to get into that a little bit in the program, but if you search for royalty-free music and Creative Commons, that would get you started. Okay. If there's anybody on the call or on Skype who's got a question, press star 2 to raise your hand. And again, Skype folks, that's star 2 on your Skype dial pad, not on your keyboard. And if there's anybody else on the webcast who has any questions, that would be great. Okay. Somebody on the webcast has asked, I'm interested in featuring other dancers on my DVD. What would you suggest for approaching them with regards to payment? I'm not sure if I should think about paying the dancer up front or give a certain percentage after sales or what. That's a really good question. It's not something that I've had to deal with myself, luckily. I did actually feature a short segment from another dancer on my DVD, but she was a close friend, and she was just willing to let me use it. But if you're looking to actually have other dancers being a significant material part of the DVD, then it would be best to pay them. And there are lots of different ways to handle this. One is that you can give them an upfront payment. The only thing about this is that the payment needs to be pretty good, right? If the dancer is going to come and work for you all day on your shoot, or even for 4 hours, you really need to make it worth her while. So it is going to add, at least several $100s to your upfront costs. You can do a percentage after sales, which is really nice. The only thing is that, it's helpful for you because then you don't have a lot of risk, right? If she's getting 5% or 10%, I don't know what the going rates are, but if she's getting a percentage, then you only have to give her money after you've made money, right? The problem with that is that it adds a lot more paperwork for you. So you'll need to, keep calculating your sales and paying out percentages on a regular basis, and there may be tax forms involved in making those payments to her. So it's really a matter of balancing whether you want to invest more money up front or to deal with the paperwork later. The other thing that you can do, which is what the By Dancers for Dancers series, which was one of the first things made by Cheeky Girls Productions, does, is that all of the dancers make a cooperative production. So all the dancers come in and they participate in making the video, and then everybody has the equal right to sell it. And I think that's a really cool idea because instead of people having to deal with percentages, everybody just buys their own wholesale copies of the DVD, and whichever ones they sell, they keep the profits from. So that's kind of a cool idea. If you do want to ask about how that works, you might want to contact Michelle Joyce at Cheeky Girls, because again, I haven't done that myself, but it's a really cool option. Okay. So Andali in Durham asks, can you repeat the sign-up URL? Yes, that's Taktaba, TAKTABA.com/video, VIDEO. And again, that link will also be in the email when I send out the recording. Asana in the Czech Republic asks, would you not recommend making a more amateurish video at all, say a 30 to 40-minute drilling video, for example, that would be targeted specifically to my students as a supplement to classes and workshops? If your students are comfortable with the more amateurish production quality, then go ahead and do it, right? The only reason that you need better production values is because there are two reasons. One is that people see amateur production qualities as amateur dancing. And people see professional production qualities, they're more likely to assume that you know what you're talking about. But if you're making things for your students and they already know you and they already trust you, then chances are that's not going to be an issue for you. The other reason is that bad production qualities can be distracting, right? The most important reason to have good production values is that nobody notices the production values. So you may want to do things like have good sound. If you can wear a wireless microphone, that will make a big difference in the quality of the video and how comfortable the students are while they're working with it. But again, if your students are happy with you popping on your camcorder and filming it, go for it. The only thing is that you may still run into copyright issues from using the music, so you might still have to license your music. But again, you're outside the U.S., so I'm not really sure what the law is on that. And if it's local, it may not be something that anybody ever notices, but you could get in trouble for it. So I hope I've answered that. Let's see. Okay, I've got another question from Treasure. Treasure, go ahead.
Okay, I was about that time frame that you mentioned. I have some other fairly large projects going on during that time. About how much homework is going to be involved in this?
Okay, that's really hard to predict in advance, so I can't give you a firm answer. What I will tell you is that this process, when I did it in 8 weeks, took up all my free time and a couple of all-nighters. Okay. We're doing it in 8 months. So I would expect that you'd probably need to make do steady work on this process. But so it's not going to be, a half hour here once a week kind of thing. You may have to work on it several times a week, or possibly, all Saturday afternoon kind of thing, or whatever afternoon works for you. The other thing is that some modules are going to be a lot more work than others. So I find that the editing process takes a lot of time, sitting down in front of your computer for hours and over again to get that done. But things like the DVD authoring happen a lot faster. I've also built in some wiggle room into the program. So, for example, we're actually going to be taking a break from new material in the month of May, which is right after you've gotten your footage. So in April, we're going to get your footage. May is just a month off, and part of the reason that we're doing that is I'm going to be in Turkey for the first 2 weeks, but also because sometimes there are delays. Thanks. And actually I think Amina Beres is going too, so it's going to be awesome. You know, sometimes getting your footage is one of the things that takes the longest because depending on which of the resources you're using, you may have to wait between shoots. And so I'm kind of building in some space around the tasks that take longer.
Okay. And if, for instance, I did get finished with the homework before you move on, there's really not enough, there's no space there, or not enough space there to make it into the next unit.
The pace that I've set up here I think is pretty moderate. So it's not crazy, crazy fast. So it's not that necessarily that you would if you fall behind, you're going to stay behind. Mm-hmm. There's some padding in there, so there will be some time to catch up. But the other thing, too, is that you don't actually have to be at the same pace as everybody else. Right? The forum is actually going to stay open for a full month after the program ends, so that there will be time to do that. So if you need some extra time to get your footage and everybody else has started editing, but you're still working on getting your footage, it's not the end of the world, right? You'll still get the assignment and the resources on the original schedule, but if it's a couple weeks before you can start on that, then it's really not that big a deal.
That sounds doable.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, too, that I think I mentioned earlier is that, you can also drop out at any point, right? It's not if you sign up for the month-to-month version, it's not like, you are tied into this project and if something changes, and actually I'm just going to read off my guarantees. At the very bottom of this page after the sign-up buttons, and I'm just going to read it word for word because I'm kind of proud of it. So still not sure? Making your first video is a really big deal. It's a big step forward for your career, and big steps trigger big fear. I was so afraid of owning my own role as a dancer with a video that I didn't tell anyone in my local community about my DVD until it had been out for 6 months. So I am going to guide you through this process step by step, and if you sign up for the premium group, I'm going to be right there with you holding your hand, but it still might be too much. Even if you have a game-changing idea, or even if you know that people need what you have to offer, you may not be ready to take that step. Maybe it'll be the fear of putting yourself out there, or maybe something will come up and you just won't have time. Either way, you'll have invested time and money into a project that you can't complete right now, and that really sucks. So while I hope that when September comes, I'll be celebrating your video release with you, I know that some of you will need to drop out. So I'm offering the "what the hell was I thinking" guarantee. And so if you decide to drop out of the program for any reason, even if you love it but just can't handle it right now, you can drop out by the 10th of February and receive a full refund. And actually there's some text missing from this that I'll have to add right away. And that's also, if you're on the monthly plan, you can also drop out at any month as long as you give me 5 days notice before the next month. So if it's April 25th, you can cancel for May. And when I say for any reason, I mean it. If you just can't handle making a video right now, you can have a refund. If you decide the program sucks or you can't stand me personally, you can request a refund for that too. But I hope that you'll love the program and think I'm awesome and your video will get rave reviews. And of course, you don't have to drop out. This course was originally designed as a do-it-yourself product, so you don't have to keep up with the group. You're welcome to stay enrolled in the class and just save the lessons for when you do have time to use them. But if you'd just rather have your money back, I'm 100% okay with that. Okay. Now, I usually don't read stuff word for word, but I think it was important to get all the details. So kind of the summary is, if it's too much, you can drop out and you can get your money back, or you can drop out with the monthly plan and not pay for any future stuff. If it's too much, you can stay in the course but work at your own pace and just get whatever done that you can get done, and then you'll still have the lessons and the worksheets to take you through the rest. If it's too much, you can drop out and just save those worksheets for later, or you can just get all your money back. So does that make sense? Yep,
you covered it all. That's lots of options.
So I hope that's not, if that's unclear, by the way, if anybody else is unclear on what that means, now would be a good time to ask, because especially before I make that web page public. Right now you're the only ones who know about it. Okay, let me check the Q&A question. Okay, Terry in Rochester asks, I have a music license through ASCAP for my studio. Do you know if that license covers video? I don't know for sure, but I would guess that it's not going to cover that. I'm pretty sure that the ASCAP studio licenses only cover playing it in the studio space and not putting it on video. So I would definitely budget to spend at least a little bit of money on video for your DVD. Terry also says, can you recommend video editing programs that we could go ahead and try to begin learning over the holidays? That's a great idea. In this program, there are two pieces of software that we're going to use. For Macs, I recommend the iLife suite. It's low-level consumer editing software that comes for free with most Macs, and that's what I use to edit and author my DVDs. You know, it's really basic stuff. My mother-in-law uses it to edit her videos and photos and make, you know, slideshow DVDs after she goes on vacation to show everybody, but it really does have everything that you need to make a basic instructional DVD with professional quality. So we're going to use the free stuff. On a PC, we're also going to use the Windows Movie Maker suite, and I actually have the wrong name in front of me, so I'll have to look up the name of that. But that also usually comes free with PCs. So the short version is look on your machine and see what you've got. You probably have either iMovie if you're working on a Mac, or Windows Movie Maker, or Windows Live Movie Maker, depending on what version of Windows you have. So by all means, go ahead and start playing. Very often these softwares come with tutorials, but when we get to the editing module, I'm also going to take you step by step through everything that you need to know right there on screen. Okay. We've got another Q&A here. How many hours or days of filming would one expect for the first DVD? And how many times of repetition for certain sections or moves would you recommend? Okay, so the first question is how many hours or days of filming would you expect? A lot of my recommendation depends on how much you practice beforehand. And we're going to talk about how to prepare for your shoot in the shooting section. So we're going to talk about how to practice, how to get comfortable on camera, how to make sure that you're comfortable with your material before you actually get into the studio to start filming. What I would say is that for my first video, which was I think about 70 minutes, I spent 2 evenings in the studio, so from about 7 to 11. So that was about 8 hours to get a little over an hour of filming. And I think that was actually pretty good. So, you know, it does take quite a bit more time since you have to get set up. You need time to make mistakes. It's helpful to take a couple of extra takes. So even if you think you've done a good job with a particular scene, it's helpful to film it again just to make sure that you have 2 options in case you misspoke or you had your eyes closed or were making a funny face. So I would say that probably, you know, between 5 and 10 times the length of your DVD. The other piece of that question was how many times of repetition for certain sections or moves would you recommend? I'm not really sure what that question is asking. Were you asking how many times should you repeat it on screen for the user, so how much repetition and how much practice should the user get? Or were you asking how many times do you have to repeat a typical scene in order to get good footage? So if you could type that in your answer in the Q&A box, that would be helpful. How much repetition you include for the viewer, how much practice you include, really depends on who you're making the DVD for. And we're going to get into that in a lot of detail in the scripting section. But in general, you want to make your video for one specific person. And this is a big mistake that video producers make, right? They try and make a general DVD that will make everybody happy. And when you do that, you start getting videos where you're teaching an intermediate or an advanced topic, and then all of a sudden the instructor is teaching hip circles again. And you know hip circles. And they're doing that on screen over and over again, and it's driving you crazy, right? And so the best way to make a really impactful video is to make it for one specific person. Make the thing that's going to make them happy, because if it makes that one person happy, there are a lot of other people like them out there in the world who are going to need and want the same thing and be made happy by the same thing. So the best thing to do is to find out who you're making it for and see how much repetition that person wants. And we're actually going to go through an interview process in the scripting section, but you can also just ask somebody, right? Do you like a lot of practice? Do you like a little? Personally, for me, when I'm learning something, I appreciate a lot of practice. I like videos to be like workshops, because when I'm popping a DVD into my DVD player, I'm usually after help practicing and integrating the stuff, the material. I'm not just interested in, oh, well, that's how you do it. Okay, I'll go off and practice it on my own. But some people are. And so it's really helpful to know who your target profile is, who you're making that for, and find out what they want. That was a really roundabout answer, and I'm not sure I answered it. So if I didn't, please go ahead and type in some follow-up questions in the Q&A box. Okay. Is there anybody on the call or on Skype who'd like to ask a question? If so, go ahead and press *2 on your phone or on the Skype keypad. I also see a question in the Q&A box. Okay. Wallace Ruby asked, is it okay to have the goal of a video rough draft? If that's your goal for the program, that's fine. There's absolutely no reason why that couldn't be what you want to get out of the program. I would also ask why the rough draft is your goal rather than the main one. If you're not sure you can finish it in time, then why not shoot for a full one but be happy with a rough draft? If it's something about fear, right, you don't feel ready to put it out there, then you might want to examine that fear and see if it's still valid. Is that coming from something that's really important to you or outside messages that you're getting? And I don't know the answer to that, right? Only you know the answer to that, and it doesn't really matter. But when you know where that's coming from, that can help you make that decision. But if your goal is a rough draft, no, I wouldn't kick you out of the program. So I hope that's answered it. Wallace Ruby also said that she hasn't been able to access the sign-up on taktaba.com/video. Oh, I'm sorry. I had that marked as private. That would explain why. Thank you for letting me know. I'm republishing that. Okay, that should be available now. Thank you, Wallace Ruby. I had that marked as private so I could edit it without it showing up on my website, so thank you. Okay, and then I got a follow-up question here. The question was, yes, how many times to repeat on screen for the user? So yes, again, it would depend on who you're making your video for and what their preferences are. Let's see, Terry says, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I can't wait for the full course, and I'm glad. That's awesome. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Again, if you're on the call or Skype, you can press *2 to raise your hand. If you're on the webcast, you can type that in at left. I'm going to take a sip while I wait for those to come in. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions yet. I do just want to mention one thing, and that's that most of the questions we've gotten so far have been about my video program, which is awesome. I'm pretty excited about that, so I'm glad you're asking questions. But don't forget, you can also ask questions about the 3 myths, right? I can't handle this. I don't have anything to add. Who am I to make this? So don't be shy if you have questions. If you don't want to share anything personally, that's fine too, because this is pretty personal stuff. Okay, Treasure. Hi there.
Hi. What I have a question about is I'm always very protective of the things that I've learned because I feel that I paid for those things not just with my money but also with my sweat and often with my tears. And so have you found that making the video and putting that information that was so hard for you to gain has been a worthy trade-off for what you got back from putting it out there?
My personal answer is yes, absolutely. I worked hard for all this, and I had great teachers, and I studied a lot, and I did a lot of research. And if I had not made the video, then the expression of these wonderful things that I'd learned would have been limited to the stage, right? It would have been through the expression of my dance. And by making the video, I've both been compensated for sharing that knowledge because people buy it, and I've also gained a lot of stature. And not to be like, I am the biggest belly dancer in the world, right? But
Sure.
People know who I am because of this. I've taught workshops. I've been invited to speak at conferences. So the way that it's jump-started my career has been huge. And then there's another piece which may not apply to you, and that's that I have this belief that knowledge is, how do I want to say this? Knowledge is not mine, right? I worked hard to get it, but I didn't really create it, right? I'm interpreting the principles that I see and how the dance works and how things can be put together, but those were already in the dance. I didn't make them. I just discovered how to think about them and how to express them and how to teach them. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like my contribution, the thing that I should be compensated for, is the using of them and the sharing of them, but not for them themselves. Right? And that kind of gets back to that quote that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Let me dig through my notes and find that. It was Penelope Trunk who said, "The information is a commodity, and the personality is the differentiator." Right? So a lot of this information actually is out there. And, you know, I hate the phrase the information age, but it's true, right? We're living in a time when people can get a lot of information very easily. But what's of value to them is help learning it and help applying it and help understanding it and putting it in context. And so you can create a lot of value for other people and be compensated in money and in stature for doing it. Does that make any sense?
Yes, and I didn't really think about the stature part of it. I was only thinking monetarily, and there is when you add stature to it, that's a different equation in my mind.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, also stature leads to money. So, you know, when you have the stature, people invite you to teach workshops. You know,
Sure.
when you have the stature, more students come to you. So it pays off there, too. You know, it's one of those things where I think where it's really win-win. You know, the more you are able to give, the more, and give in carefully considered ways that respect your value, right?
Right.
The more people want to pay you, the more they want to compensate you and be in, you know, part of this experience. So I think it's all a good thing. There was something else that occurred to me, and I want to take a second to see if I can remember it. Oh, yes. The other piece, you know, about protecting your content is that somebody's going to pirate your stuff eventually. Okay, it will happen. I haven't seen it happening to myself, but I would be shocked if there isn't at least somebody who's just burned a copy of my DVD and given it to their friends. And there's really no way to prevent that, right?
Right.
There are a lot of technological things you can try to do that, but most of them don't really work very well. But there are always ways around them. And so my personal philosophy about this is do your best and don't worry about it, right? Make good content. You know, I do put in a little disclaimer that says I worked really hard on this, and copying it is stealing, and you know, and I've worked really hard, and getting paid for this is what helps me make more stuff. So please don't do it. Kind of like a little guilt trip.
Sure.
A happy guilt trip, not a guilt trip, right? But other than that, you know, you do your best and you let it out there into the world, and you have to trust people to mostly do their best. And the thing is that somebody is going to take advantage of that, and there's no way to prevent it. But by putting it out there, it has the opportunity to help and even to bless other people just by having the information out there. And those people that it's reached because you put it out there are going to come to you, and they're going to like you and want more from you. And so, you know, there's always a trade-off. So does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
That was getting really roundabout.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Have I answered your question, Treasure?
Yes.
Okay. Let me take a look at the webcast questions. Okay, Wallace Ruby had said, a rough draft allows me the room to change my mind once I see the product. And that's true. That's a perfectly valid way to do it. And in fact, I actually recommend not quite a rough draft, but a practice cut after in the process between when you make the script and when you actually shoot it full. So I think I was thinking of something different when you said rough draft. So the thing that you are describing as a rough draft is actually something I recommend. I think of it as a rough cut or a test cut. And the way I've actually handled it is I actually teach the information in a workshop before I teach it on film, because that gives me a chance to get some questions. So yes, a rough draft is certainly a possibility. And if you get through the scripting process and your rough draft makes you want to change your mind, then that's good information to have, because you're getting that before you've spent the money on shooting it and licensing the music, etc. So that's a great idea. Afsana said, thank you for the program. Very useful and encouraging. Bye. So I'm assuming she's off the call, but if not yet, bye, Afsana. Kathy said, if a group of us wanted to make a video together, how many licenses of your program would we need? That's a really good question. I haven't thought about that carefully. What I would say is that if you want to make a program, one of you should take the class and learn the material. You would be perfectly welcome to be the coordinator of the process as long as you don't share the actual materials. So if you if you're the one who's going to be doing the editing, and you can take it, you can learn the process, and you can be the coordinator of this, and you can hand off tasks to other people. But if, for example, you are all going to write the script together and you want to go through these scripting exercises together, I'd prefer that more of you take the class. I think I'd really need to think about that and get back to you in a little bit more detail. So if you want to email me at nadira@nadirajamal.com and just tell me a little bit more about how you plan on working, that would be helpful. But again, if only one of you needs to learn the stuff and everybody else is going to be kind of your minions or your partners and they don't actually need to see my materials in order to do that, I'm actually pretty much okay with that. So I'll leave that up to you. But if you want to talk in more detail, just drop me an email, Kathy. Let's see. Cindy in Dallas asked, will you discuss in the technical process preventative measures to stop piracy? The short answer is no, because I don't use any. The technical measures that prevent piracy don't actually prevent it. They just make it a little bit harder, and they're difficult to apply. The people who are serious about copying your stuff will still do it. And it also, some of the technical measures out there also make it harder for people who have legitimately paid for your product to actually use it. So even some of them will prevent it from playing properly on a computer. And so my philosophy on this is the people who really want to copy it are gonna, no matter what you do. So there's no point in going to extra effort to prevent that. So we're not going to talk about anything specifically. I will mention, my personal, please don't copy this because it's the right thing to do spiel that comes at the beginning of my videos, but that's really the only thing we're going to include. Okay, do we have any more questions? Callers and Skype folks, press *2. Webcast folks, ask on that little box at left. And for the record, you're also perfectly happy to ask me about any other concerns that you've got about making a video, not just about the 3 myths or the stuff covered in the program. We've got time, so. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions yet. If you think of anything else, there's still time. In the meantime, I'd like to ask you a question. So, what was the most important thing that you learned, or any breakthroughs that you had, or any aha moments on this course? So what was the most important thing that you're taking away from this? If you'd like to answer that question, you can press *2 on the phone or Skype, or you can type that in at the box at left. Nobody wants to answer that? Really? Will somebody do me a favor? Again, what was the most important thing you took away from this call? Was there any breakthrough or any aha moment? Or which of the 3 myths is talking to you the hardest? Which one of those is getting most in your way? I would love to hear from you. *2 to raise your hand or type it in the Q&A box. Okay, Treasure. Let me unmute you. Thank you so much for being the first to comment.
Oh, no problem. You're going to get sick of hearing from me. I would say the 2 most important things for me would be the talking back to the idea that it's all very, very overwhelming. And the other thing would be what you talked about my question about what are you gaining. Is what you gain more than what you're giving up? So those 2 ideas, I think, for me, were the most helpful.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, Treasure. I'm really glad that you did that. Okay. I also see Amina Barris. Hi there.
Hi. A couple of things that kind of, this whole topic has been something that I've been struggling with for about a year. Kind of a lot of what you've said is I've gone through all the angst. But what stuck out, the 2 things that stuck out is the reminder that as teachers, no matter what form of, I'll put it in quotes, belly dance we're doing, but as teachers, we all have something unique to offer, and it's about sharing what we know. That's why we teach. Because if we didn't want to share it, we wouldn't be in the dance studio or in the classroom however many nights a week we're doing this. And this is just another teaching mechanism to reach audiences out there. Just because they're not in your locality doesn't mean you don't have something to offer them.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. I saw some questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to head over there. But if there's anybody else in the call or Skype who'd like to chime in, go ahead and press *2 to raise your hand. In the webcast, I see Jennifer in Orlando says, more confidence about it being okay if the subject I want to do on a DVD already exists. That's huge. That was even true for me, and my topic, improvisation, is almost not covered at all. But around the time I was getting ready to release mine, the Hayes video Componography had been announced, and it turns out there wasn't that much overlap, but it sounded like there would be. And I called Julie, who was coaching me at the time, Julie Eason of the Belly Dance Business Academy, and I said, oh my God, there's another video coming out, and I think it's going to hit improv. And she said, that's good. People who buy hers are going to want more, and they're going to look for more, and they're going to find yours. So, it's wonderful if it already exists. That just means that you're on the right track. Wallace Ruby answered what a video means, which is awesome. Kathy in Layton, Utah says, the astonishing fact that I might have something to contribute. Yay! If the only thing anybody takes away from this call is that they might have something to contribute, I'm going to be so happy. Right? My job will have been done. Right? Even if you decide not to make a video anytime soon, that knowledge that you have something to contribute can be applied in so many other ways, too. That's another topic for conversation, though. So I'm so glad you said that, Kathy. Let's see. Okay, we've also got Tabia in Dallas said that making a video is not as intimidating as it sounds. I'm totally ready to jump in and give it a shot. Your statement about sharing knowledge really hit home with me. I'm so glad. I really do think that dancers have this idea that videos are about the world-class dancers putting themselves out there in DVDs, right? We buy them for information, but, that this is this, stratosphere of the highest and most famous people letting us into their knowledge and look at how great they are, and it really isn't that. They really are about sharing knowledge and getting it out there, and if you have some knowledge to share, you should be doing it. So I'm so glad you said that, Tabia. Terry said that she registered for the class but didn't see where to put the U code. Yes, Terry, I'll email you separately and we'll fix that. If anybody else has that problem, when you go to register for the class, when you add the item to your shopping cart, there will be a little link that says add discount code, and that's where you enter it, so it's before the checkout part. If people are having trouble with that, drop me an email. It's nadira@nadirajamal.com, and I can help you with that. I may also just remove the discount code and update the pricing and make this a private sale, and that might be a little bit easier. So regardless, we'll work it out. So if you're trying to register and you have trouble, don't get frustrated. Okay, we've got a few more chimes in on the Q&A section here. Wallace Ruby says, a whole different perspective on video. As you know, I'm a video student. I've worked with Wallace Ruby privately, and I know that she's learned mostly through video, so she's got a very interesting perspective on video. And Terry in Rochester says, I also agree that the most important message is that I have a unique perspective to share. Thank you. Thank you too, Terry. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to chime in? Webcast folks, you can enter your comments in the box at left. Phone and Skype folks, you can press *2 to raise your hand. Okay, I think then that means that we're done. Well, thank you everybody for joining me. I wrote this out as almost a rant, right? This is my rant on why you need a video and the things that are getting in your way and why they shouldn't. But you being here has turned this into a conversation, and I'm so glad that we had this. It's been such a pleasure talking to you all and hearing what your challenges are and what you're bringing out of this, and I hope to talk to you again soon. So until then, happy dancing. I'm going to unmute everybody. You can just say goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.